Hey people, how's it going? Thanks for coming back. I know today's video is a little bit on the late side. That was just because I had some like stomach problems whatever earlier, and then I had to go to some interview. So the interview like just ended now. That's why I'm also wearing a beautiful shirt, in case you're wondering. So yeah, I guess because of the interview, I'll talk a little bit about interviews. Now, I obviously don't have too much experience with interviews, like in an actual corporate situation, but just from what I've seen from interviewing to be an RA, it seems like they have a very intense system in place here. I know people at other colleges who went through it a lot more easily, but these guys are like legit about getting this job. So, yeah, so interview process. A couple weeks ago, was it weeks? 2 weeks maybe? I don't know. Some time ago, I went to a kind of like one-on-one-ish type of interview session where they had us go in a group and then you'd kind of cycle through all these people. It was a very long process, but that was the more stressful of it. Now I've like made it through the first round and I'm on a second round interview, and so it was more of a group setting. They kind of watch you as opposed to talk to you directly, so they kind of give you something to do with your group and you do it. It's a very interesting process. If you are looking to like do something in that involves being interviewed, just general tips: make sure you look good to some extent. So don't like just show up like in all very disheveled kind of like people. I think people were overdressing in my opinion, but I mean it doesn't hurt to overdress to some extent, unless as long as you're not like wearing a tuxedo to the interview. But it is nice to look good. Make sure you kind of know what they want to hear in a way, not to like fabricate your answers to like specifically put what they want to hear, because they probably deal with a lot of people who try doing that, who try like perfectly answering, and that would just be annoying from my point. It's kind of like, all right, well obviously you studied into this like very hard. Just kind of like make sure whatever your stuff that you bring up can connect back to what they're trying to get. So kind of like showing examples. Tell stories in a way, because stories will stick better than just like, oh yeah, I can be a leader. Or like, oh, if you're like, oh, there's one time I was a leader, blah 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 blah. They're gonna be like, oh man, that was kind of interesting. I kind of remember you more now because of that story. And generally, just try not to be nervous. It's tough. I mean, I remember in my first round of interviews, as it was like starting, it was a very nerve-wracking process because it was just like 1-on-2. There were like two interviewers, so I kind of felt like overwhelmed, but kind of like they had more power and whatnot. As it went on, it kind of got more used to it. This was a much nicer setting, I feel. There still were a couple things where you kind of had to like know your stuff. You couldn't just get away with like just sitting in a group and letting your group talk. You had to kind of show you were part of it too. But it was a very interesting process. But just, if you do look to interview, make sure you are fully prepared. Don't try to completely wing it. You can kind of wing it, but have a base to work with, because if you're going in completely blind, you will most likely trip up. I'm not saying it's impossible. There are probably those people who can just go for the gold and get it on the first go. Good for you. For the rest of you, try studying up a little bit on what you're trying to get into. Other than that, I'll just wrap this up for tonight. Hopefully I can get to a normal schedule again, not having them this late at night. But thank you for watching, and hope to see you people tomorrow.